1. In 1988, I was an ambitious 16-year-old, intent on following a career as a music radio DJ. I'd already enthused my way into the local radio station, and was spending every evening after school answering phones, pulling records from the library, making coffee and pushing buttons in the studio at every possible opportunity. I was very proud to have been trusted with my own show from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., the graveyard shift, from Saturday night to Sunday morning. Radio was my life. I used to dream about it regularly and sometimes still do. One Sunday afternoon I awoke from the most vivid radio dream. Normally my radio dreams are your standard panic dream. The equipment won't work. I'm late. I can't open the door. I can't find the record. I've missed the news. There's a giant iguana wearing headphones in the seat. The usual stuff. But not in this dream. In this one I was standing in a dark grey and red radio studio, and a small blonde man was saying to me, "There's just one thing. Don't play Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, because every time one of the directors hears it, he crashes his car." I remember waking at that moment and being surprised firstly by being in bed, then immediately by the strangely specific nature of the dream. Otis Redding's Sitting on the Dock of the Bay was fairly standard fodder for local radio in 1988. I guess radio listeners are suckers for a bit of whistling. DJs will all tell you that there are songs they hate because they have to play them all the time. For me, this was one of the handful of classic tunes that would never get old. From that day on, whenever I'd play the song, it would always remind me of that odd dream. My radio career progressed a little over the next couple of years. They even let me do the breakfast show on Christmas Day. Mostly, though, I was left to my own devices in the middle of the night, as one show a week became 2, then 3, then 6. By summer 1990, I was hungry for a step up the career ladder and some daylight, both of which duly arrived in the form of 2 weeks relief work covering the mid-morning show at a real top 40 station on the coast. I was always sending out tapes to stations I wanted to work for. This was in a fun holiday town, and was known in the business for being especially hot. The only catch was that they needed me for Monday morning because the mid-morning guy had left suddenly. Thankfully my boss was very pleased for me, and gave me 2 weeks off with his blessing. I could have pinched myself, and although I don't remember doing so, I probably did. As I arrived for my first show, I do clearly remember trying not to be too excited. I was aware how young I was, and desperately trying to stay cool. But I'd forgotten that radio people aren't cool at all. Luckily for me, the fat breakfast DJ was a total geek, and within about 30 seconds of letting me into the studio for the first time, he was playing me jingles and telling me about their new CD players. "The CDs are in special cases to stop us from touching them because the boss thinks we're all slobs," he said, as he stuffed another donut in his mouth. I started my show at 9, and it went along without a hitch. Like any job, large chunks of radio presenting are done on mental autopilot. So I was quite relieved to get through the first show without getting the station name wrong, or making a similar faux pas. I met a few of the staff that morning as they'd popped into the studio to say hi, but I didn't see the program controller until my show was over. Having just finished, I was leaving the studio as he was trying to enter. I pushed the heavy soundproof door straight into his hand, which it met with a loud cracking sound. He smiled and grimaced at the same time, awkwardly almost shook my hand and then decided not to. Then he and I simultaneously apologized as he led me into the production studio. Thankfully he didn't seem to hold the crushed hand incident against me. He was very grateful I'd come at such short notice. He'd been busy that morning, but heard a few links and I sounded comfortable and confident. The girls in the office had given me the seal of approval. I made a mental note to swing by and chat with the girls in the office. We exchanged a bit of small talk about my plans for the week, until it became apparent my appraisal was at an end. As he started reaching for the door, presumably before I could get there, as he held the door open he turned to me and said, "There's just one thing. Don't play Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, because every time one of the directors hears it, he crashes his car." I stopped and looked around. I was in a dark grey and red studio. I turned back to face the program controller. He was small and blonde. "Are you okay?" he said. "You've gone pale." Yeah, sorry. What was that about the director?" "It's a bit of a weird thing. One of the directors has had 3 car crashes, and every time it's happened that song was playing on the radio, so we've sort of banned it." I elected, wisely I think, not to explain how I dreamed this exact scenario 2 years previously. "Oh right, no problem," I said. 2. This happened to me several days ago. 17th of March 2018 in fact. It felt so real then, and I should have written it down fresh. Now I am doubting myself, but here's how I remember it. But first, here's the scene. I am a realtor in the Bay Area. We were signing off a young couple at one of my offices around 3:30 p.m. My clients were situated in conference room 4 with the notary. I stepped inside the conference room. We say our hellos, and the notary proceeds with her sign-off routine. By the way, none of this is really important to what spooked me, but again, giving some context. Notary needs copies of the young couple's driver's licenses, so I offer to do that for her. "No need to bother yourself," I offer. "Continue on, I got you," I say, or something to that effect. I grab the 2 separate driver's licenses and proceed to the copy machine. I pop the cover with left hand, put license 1, hers, face down on the glass with my right hand, hit the print button, and proceed to make a color copy. Wait. Machine starts to whir, but nothing is coming out. I inspect the machine, pop the cover, look around, close the cover. Nothing is happening now. Damn machine did not seem to be working, I'm thinking. What the heck? I press the button hurriedly a few more times. Wait a little. Give the machine a little love tap, nothing, not going. Then suddenly the machine spits out 2 sheets with what seemed like a jolt. The sheets seemed to come out of the machine at about the same time. One sheet seemed to be stuck behind the other. If you are familiar with copy machines, you have experienced this, I'm sure, where the second sheet is blank. I don't know what I was expecting actually, but I suppose it would have been to see her driver's license image on the front page and the second sheet to be blank. I grab the sheets with my left hand. I proceed to hold the printer cover up with my left hand as well. With my right hand, I dig into my right pocket to grab license number 2, his, and motion to press it against the glass. Here's where the story gets trippy. As this was in motion, license 2 is still in my right hand. My eyes happened to glance at the second sheet of paper, drooping over. Naturally, gravity was pulling it down, and there was enough space between the 2 sheets, and I see an image. I was now expecting to see 2 copies of her driver's license. Damned if it wasn't his. Stopped me dead in my tracks from proceeding to make his copy. Remember, I had not put his license on the glass yet. It had been in my right pocket prior to me pulling it out to press against the printer glass. It was an exact match. I could not figure out how 2 separate driver's license images came out when I had only put hers in the machine. My mind goes into problem-solving mode, and the sensation I was feeling was, this does not compute. This does not compute. I thought to myself, maybe the notary or the front desk attempted to make copies before I arrived, but accidentally left a copy on the printer. But if this was the case, the notary would not have needed to make copies, right? She wouldn't have let me leave to make copies. Additionally, I witnessed when she began to ask for their license. As this was going on, I was simultaneously feeling a little anxiety, because I felt like a lot of time had passed to make 2 damned copies. Time also seemed to be passing too slow. What had happened kept running through my head in slow motion as I tried to recall if I had somehow put his driver's license in first and just had a short-term memory lapse. Was this a disorientation of sorts? I don't know. I'll tell you what though, this whole thing made me gasp under my breath like, whoa. I felt like saying something to someone, right after I realized that I definitely had not put driver's license number 2 on the glass. I was alone though, and thought better than to try to explain this to my clients or the notary. Surely they would have thought I was crazy. I could not do anything but wonder as I walked away from the machine and back to my clients, bewildered smile on my face like, what the shit just happened? Thinking to myself, is this what they call a glitch? Is this the type of stuff I've been reading about in Glitch in the Matrix recently? 3. I'll start by saying that I don't believe something supernatural or even glitchy happened here. The logical explanation that I found is sleep deprivation, mental issues, and the effect the drugs had on us. This happened last summer. My ex-girlfriend and I'll call her A, had a free week all for ourselves while my parents were out of the city. She took a few days off from work, and we planned to take acid and MDMA, not at the same time. Monday we started with 2 tabs of acid and a hike through a nearby forest. It was my first time trying acid, and second time for her. I had a really interesting trip while I was still inside the house, but as soon as we reached the forest and relaxed a bit, things went really smooth. It was a really great experience and we bonded even more. The next 2 days we had a few MDMA rolls. Basically, we spent the days high in my parents' apartment, staring at each other and talking and being lovey-dovey. Those who took MDMA before know what I mean. We didn't go out partying or stuff, just stayed indoors. Thursday we took a break, tried to sleep and eat and get her ready to go to work the next day. We were extremely tired. Anyway, here's where the story starts. Friday she left for work, and I stayed home trying to sleep. She came back around noon, took a day off since she felt extremely tired. When she came back, she woke me up, and I had the strangest feeling ever. My mind would not accept that she was there. I was seeing her, touching her, but something inside me kept telling me this is wrong, something is wrong here. An eerie feeling that she was not supposed to be there. I would go to the kitchen and come back, and my mind would make a note. Oh, A is here. Wonder when she got here. Oh wait, right. She was here before. Throughout the day, she had the same weird feeling as I did. We kept having weird idiosyncrasies. I would go fetch her a cup of tea to come back and have A tell me with a genuine surprise on her face, "How did you know I wanted tea?" And exactly what kind of tea? I haven't told you that. Even though I was 100% sure she did. Even though she visited this house a million times and knows it as well as her own, she went to the bathroom and after a few minutes she came back visibly shaken, telling me, "I can't find the bathroom. I got lost in the hallway and everything around me felt foreign to me, as I had never been here before." I went to the kitchen, knowing that I should know this place, but everything just feels terribly strange and wrong. Later I discovered that this is a feeling known as jamais vu. That day we had a few other small issues like this, mostly a feeling of derealization from me and an eerie feeling throughout the day. I want to mention that we were not high or drunk. We took MDMA Wednesday and nothing else since then, though I'm sure that we were still feeling the effects of the drugs. It was close to midnight. A and I were in my room, she was in bed on her laptop, and I was at my desk browsing Reddit. We were tired from lack of sleep, and we sat in silence. From time to time we would exchange glances, almost like both of us wanted to say something, acknowledge the weird stuff that happened throughout the day. We had a moment where we stared at each other for quite some time. To me it felt like a few minutes of nothing but staring, but probably it only lasted a few seconds. Suddenly I heard her voice, without her actually speaking. She called my name and I flinched, went from my chair and sat next to her on the bed. She flinched as well, giving me a scared look. From then on we had a sort of telepathic conversation. We were both amazed and could not believe it. We were not sure if it was only in our heads. Maybe we were actually talking to each other, but somehow we could not see our lips moving. We decided to find out by telling each other to do something. She told me to go to the kitchen and bring a bottle of milk, and I told her to search for Nivea cream on my computer. Went to the kitchen, got the milk, and came back to her sitting on my computer with Nivea cream results on Google. We both freaked out and started crying and hugging each other. In the next months we went pretty much insane with this, trying to replicate it, and went down the rabbit hole, so to speak, researching everything from telepathy, hallucinogenic drugs, twin flames concept, chakras, etc. We never managed to replicate a telepathy talk again, but we started to see idiosyncrasies everywhere, to the point that it was affecting our relationship. We are both skeptics, and usually would try to come up with a logical solution. but now we were both clinging to every little thing. We called each other at the same time. We must be connected telepathically, etc. My logical explanation for this is that we both picked up clues from each other during the telepathic talk. Basically, we both thought the same thing and formed an almost identical narrative inside our head. My explanation for the objects, the milk and the Google search, that we gave each other is that milk is a common object in a house. You can convince yourself that you thought of that. And she guessed the Google search because I had a Nivea cream in my room. Probably I looked at it and she picked the idea. I don't know. Anyway, I'm curious what you think. I'll answer any questions you have. 4. I used to work at Enterprise Car Rental, except in the truck division. My job was to inspect, clean, park, and sometimes deliver the trucks. Me and one other employee working rotating Saturdays. And this was my Sunday to work. Sundays are usually pretty slow, so they only have one VSA and one manager working those days, rather than having a full office. On this particular Sunday, my best friend came to work with me to keep me company. This wasn't out of the ordinary because my manager allowed this since it was slow on Sundays. Once I opened up the bay, I grabbed all the keys to the dirty trucks and got to work. I like to clean the trucks by size because it helps with parking them. Because of this, I separated the keys and put them on the assigned ring for the truck size. There weren't many 26-feet trucks on the lot that day, because they were mostly rented. So I decided to work big to small. I left the rest of the keys and grabbed the 26-feet truck's key ring, and told my friend to come with me while I start bringing the trucks in one by one to clean them. Sometimes the workers on Saturday would mix the dirty trucks in with the clean ones. So first we walked through the lot and found all of the trucks that I had keys for, and put the keys in the ignition so when it was time to clean them, all I had to do was start the truck and move it. All of the keys had tags that matched the tag on the truck. This was important because sometimes one key started multiple trucks, and we didn't want to mix up the keys. I remember my manager asked me to wash a particular truck for a customer who would be there soon. He wanted this particular truck because of the double cab that it had. I remembered seeing the truck on the lot because, like I said, I would go through and put the keys in the dirty trucks. But I didn't have the key for the truck, which meant it should have already been clean and on the clean ring. I told my manager and he said he would find it. That was the end of that conversation. I'm going through my day as I usually do, jumping in and out of trucks, knocking them out fairly quickly because my friend would go in and sweep the back of each truck for me, so I only had to clean the cab and scrub it down. After an hour in, my manager said he couldn't find the keys for that truck, and asked me to double-check my keys. I checked all of the key rings this time because I was thinking maybe I had accidentally put it on the wrong ring when I separated them. After triple-checking all the rings, I decided to go and check the actual truck to see if someone from Saturday left the keys in it. This happens sometimes. I went to the driver's side and my friend went to the passenger side, but both doors were locked. I peeped through the window and noticed the truck was definitely dirty, so I should have had the key. This made me believe the truck was down and the key was placed on the maintenance ring. This was usually the only time unrented trucks were locked. So I told my friend to head to the bay and that I'd be right back. I needed to go into the back office and check the maintenance ring for the key. I found the ring and to my surprise, the key wasn't there either. At this point, I was thinking maybe one of the Saturday workers accidentally took the key with him. I told my manager I couldn't find the truck anywhere, but if he helped me move the truck in the back, I could move and clean the double cab truck that was blocked in the back. He said okay, and we headed to the back to move the trucks. Before going all the way to the back, I stopped past the bay and asked my friend if she wanted to ride in the truck while I moved it. She did, and we hopped in the double cab so that I could move it and clean it. By this time, the customer was going to be there in about 5 minutes, so I had to do a quick clean job. I cleaned the truck, and by the time my manager was done with the paperwork, I was pulling the truck up for rental. I jumped out of the truck, and I immediately noticed that the truck with the missing key was running. Those trucks are loud, so you could literally hear them running if you aren't close to them. I said to myself, that's weird, that truck is running. I guess they found the key. Nonetheless, I knew the truck was dirty because of when I looked in the window earlier, so I knew I wouldn't have enough time to clean it for a rental. So I went in and told my manager the other truck was clean, and I asked him where he found the keys for the original truck. He said, I didn't find the keys, I haven't looked after we decided just to rent the other one. I looked at him shocked and confused and immediately went back outside to see if I was imagining the truck running. When I got closer to the truck, it was definitely running. I remember thinking to myself, maybe my friend found the key when I was pulling the other truck up and started it for me, and I just didn't see her do it. I ignored it and went to the driver's side to pull the truck into the bay to clean it. When I got to the door though, it was still locked. I instantly got this weird feeling and climbed up to look through the window again. This time when I got through the window, the key was in the ignition and the truck was clean. I said no way, and went to check the tag to make sure it really was the same truck. The tag matched. This was the truck. Extra confused and feeling weird now, I walked over to the passenger side to check that door, and it was locked too. How the fuck did the key get into the ignition and the truck started with the doors locked? I ran to the bay and asked my friend did she find the key to the truck and start it for me. She said no, I've been here waiting on you to come back. I believed her because she knew that I could get into trouble if she was caught operating one of the vehicles, because you had to be DOT certified to drive and operate the trucks. I told her to come with me to the truck because at this point I felt weird. She came with me and the truck was still running, but this time the driver's door was unlocked. I immediately thought someone was fucking with me and went and told my manager what happened. He was just as confused as I was since we were the only 3 on the lot that day. He decided to check the cameras to see if someone was messing with the trucks that we didn't know of. Guess what? The cameras didn't show anyone getting into the truck or starting it. The key just mysteriously popped up in the truck, and the truck was magically cleaned and running. This freaked all of us out to this day. I don't know what the heck happened. My friend and I just chalked it up as being a crazy glitch. Any suggestions? 5. I drove up to Stranger Mountain Lookout in Washington State, back before it was moved off the mountain. As I turned onto the dirt road, I noticed a sign saying to use a specific CB channel. Being that it was midweek and summer, I knew there may be trucks on the road. I kept my windows rolled down and the radio off. I arrived at the lookout without seeing any other vehicles, and without difficulty. I took my pictures and left. I had this weird thing happen with my vision as I was heading down and approaching a sharp curve to the left. The road seemed to get narrower and stretched out. I had recently seen the Fellowship of the Ring movie, and what I was seeing reminded me of when Frodo and the other hobbits are on the road and the ring wraiths are coming. Frodo yells, "Get off the road," and all the hobbits hide just in time. This all ran through my head very quickly, and I was laughing and saying out loud, "Get off the road!" My heart sank. I pulled my truck over as far to the right as possible, just as I entered the blind curve. As I was coming to a stop on the far right side of the road, an empty dump truck came barreling around the corner. He was way over on my side, and when he saw me, his eyes got huge. If I hadn't pulled over, he would have killed me. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 60. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Well, I don't know if I mentioned the other day that I was thinking of buying a bike. I did. The Sodden bike arrived and there was 2 parts missing. The brakes, well the front brakes, didn't matter how much I adjusted them, wouldn't work properly. And the Hulk himself would have had to have tightened the steering to stop it from moving about. So needless to say, that bike is going back, which I have to arrange and pay for even though they shipped a defective item. So I'm quite grumpy about that. That's actually what I'm going to have to go and do in a little while. I've got it all packaged up, all taped up as well, back in the box. And I'll have to call UPS or something to ship it back to the buggers. And when I get my money back, I'll probably just go to the local bike shop, like I should have done in the first place, and get a bike out there from them. They'll actually assemble it for me in the shop as well, so that'll save me a job, free of charge. And with that, I'm going to stop grumbling and head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.